Hi everyone, and welcome to a video with two very important topics. The first one is how to teach a dog to walk and heel, and the second is collars and pressure. Now these are two very important topics, and I have a lot of things written behind me on the whiteboard, so let's go through everything one at a time. Number one, teaching a dog to walk and heel is the most important thing that you can possibly do with your dog when training your dog. And the reason I say that is because of these four key reasons right here. One, it allows you to have beautiful walks. You want to take beautiful walks with your dog every single day. This is incredibly enjoyable for both you and your dog, and so you have to teach your dog to walk and to heel perfectly. The second reason is because we want to take our dogs anywhere and everywhere. We purposely want to take our dogs out of their comfort zone, expose them to new environments and new situations. That way we desensitize them to the world. We want them to see a lot of things in this world, which is very good for them because it raises their confidence, lowers their stress, plus it's very life enriching for them to see new things and to go to new places. The third reason is because it allows you and your dog to get on the same page. Listen everyone, outside is where all the sights, sounds, and smells of the world are. All the distractions are outside. So when your dog can choose to focus and concentrate with you while being outside, that's when you know the two of you are on the same page, tuned in and connected, which is what we want with our dogs and which is what I want with you and your dog as well. And the fourth reason why I say teaching a dog to walk is the most important thing you can do is because all forms of training require some kind of walking. And so that's why I say teaching a dog to walk is the most important thing you can possibly do with your dog. Because if we're crate training our dogs, we have to know how to walk them properly in and out of the crate. If we're teaching our dogs to go onto the bed, we have to know how to handle them properly and walk properly. If we're helping our fearful dogs overcome their fear of the sliding doors at the grocery store, we have to know how to walk them properly so they can face their fears and overcome it. Or if you have a reactive dog that's lunging, barking, and going crazy, we have to know how to teach them to walk so they can focus and concentrate on simply walking with us calmly anytime, anywhere. So that's why I say teaching a dog to walk is by far the most important thing we can do. It's very therapeutic for them, it's very soothing for them, it's very enjoyable and life enriching, okay? We want our dogs to be calm anytime, anywhere. We want to expose them to everything in the world so that they grow in confidence and become desensitized to everything, including if you have a fearful dog afraid of the recycling bin when it makes noise. We have to teach them to walk so that they calm down, they focus, and they settle, okay? So teaching a dog to walk is by far the most important thing you can possibly ever train your dog to do, and it's very important to know how to do properly. Number two, there are three parts needed for you to become successful when it comes time to teaching and training your dog to walk and to heel, all right? The first part is that you need to have the right game plan and the right approach. And that's why in this course, I've broken up how to teach a dog to walk with you into 6 phases. There are 6 phases for both you and your dog to go through, one phase at a time, and each phase gets progressively a little bit more challenging and harder, okay? Plus, I also have a simple priming video for you to watch before the training starts here in the first phase. So before the first phase of training, I have a simple priming video for you to watch with a couple exercises that I want you doing with your dog for 10, 15, 20 minutes that's going to allow you to kind of prime both you and your dog up for success by doing things properly. The second part needed for you to be successful when it comes to training your dog to walk is you doing everything properly. This is very important. And of course, you avoiding mistakes. This is also important. And of course, you filming yourself. This is what's going to allow you to improve the quickest. When you can see what you look like after training your dog for 2, 3, 4 minutes, you can see where you went right, where you went wrong, and where you need to improve the next time you try in a few more minutes. And the third part needed for you to be successful in training your dog to walk with you is you having the right dedication and the right persistence, okay? You may have a challenging dog on your hands. It's important to not give up, stay dedicated and persistent until you get the result. And it's very important for you to have the right open-mindedness in case you may have to use a different collar than the one you're currently using, okay? Remember, this video is about how to teach a dog to walk and collars and pressure. So you have to remain open-minded to maybe using a different collar than the one you're currently using. That's how you're going to be successful when it comes time to training your dog to walk with you perfectly. Number 3, how do I teach and train dogs to walk and heel with no leash pressure? How do I do this continuously and repetitively 100% of the time? Every single client I work with, every single dog I train ends up being able to walk anytime, anywhere with no leash pressure. It doesn't matter how many distractions are around, every single dog I train, without exception, learns how to walk perfectly. How do I do this? Essentially, it's these three things right here. Number one, the right game plan and the right approach. Remember, every single dog I train, I start at phase 1 of 6 in the house with 0 distractions. This allows the dog to focus and to concentrate on what it is that I'm trying to teach them, okay? So the first thing is having the right approach. The second thing that I do is I'm continuously encouraging them to follow me. I'm constantly encouraging the dog to follow me, and I do this through my leadership, my guidance, my instructions, and my engagement. In other words, the way that I move and the way that I communicate, which means the 7 key fundamentals. I do everything properly to continuously encourage the dog to follow me. And the third part is I constantly and consistently discourage them 100% of the time when they stray away from me. I'll say that again. I'm discouraging them 100% of the time when they stray away from me. And there are 5 locations that the dog can stray away from me from. They are when the dog cuts me off, goes ahead of me, pulls me to the side, lags behind, or sneaks behind me. These are the 5 locations that the dog can stray away from me or you, and it's important to know how to discourage them 100% of the time when they do that. Number 4, what does a discouragement look like when the dog strays away from me during training? Okay, so what does a discouragement look like? Essentially, it's these 2 things here. The first one is we let the dog stray away. We let them hit the end of the leash or hit the end of the bubble, okay? And when they do, that's when we apply a discouragement by adding proper leash pressure. And proper leash pressure is made up of 3 things: the amount of pressure, the timing, and the techniques. So for example, if the dog goes ahead of us, here are the techniques. We extend our hand out forward, we let them hit the end of the leash, and then we tug and release the leash, or we pop and release the leash, however you want to call it, and we walk away. This is what we do. This is the technique that we use when the dog goes ahead of us. We add a discouragement in this fashion right here. And I have 2 little drawings here that I'd like to show you and speak to you about. So let's focus on the first one here. By the way, this is an aerial shot of me walking a dog, okay? So the dog is right here, as you can see, and this is my head and my arms, all right? And you're gonna notice there are 5 orange circles around here. And these 5 orange circles represent where the dog can stray away from me from, okay? There are 5 locations that the dog can pull away from you from. So it's when they cut us off, it's when they go ahead, it's when they pull us to the side, it's when they lag behind, or when they sneak behind you. The second drawing doesn't have a dog, but it has all these arrows here. Let me explain to you what these arrows are, okay? First of all, when the dog sneaks behind us here, notice how there's an arrow that says back into the bubble, okay? I pull the dog and nudge the dog back into the bubble. And like you were doing, no. So small little tugs out, yeah. Okay? So when the dog goes behind me, I'm going to discourage him from doing that by giving these little nudges on the leash, these little pop releases on the leash, and bring him out from my legs back into the bubble. And notice that the entire time I was doing this, I was walking straight. You stay in motion, you walk straight, and you make sure the leash goes back to being slack. So you only have to tug release a little bit, and then the leash goes back to being slack. Very important. Same with down here. If the dog is lagging behind, I keep my hand extended behind me, and I nudge the dog forward back into the bubble. Here's an example of a dog that's starting to lag, and of course I'm watching the dog so I notice it, but you have to keep walking straight. You keep moving forward, and when the dog reaches the end of the leash or hits the bubble, that's when you apply leash pressure and give a tug release on the leash as you keep moving forward, and of course the leash goes back to being slack. Here's an example of another trainer, and same thing. He's walking straight, and when the dog lags behind, he's going to pull the leash a little bit as a discouragement for staying back there, and you apply a pop release on the leash, and the leash goes back to being slack. Very important. Okay, if the dog is pulling me directly to the side, I nudge the dog back towards me, okay? I nudge the dog back towards me. In this example, the dog's going to lose focus on his owner and start straying away from her, and he's going to reach the end of the leash and the end of the bubble directly to her side right there. And that's where the discouragement takes place, as the owner applies a little bit of pressure back towards her and then releases the pressure. She pops the dog back into her bubble and keeps moving straight. But here's the interesting thing, okay? As soon as the dog is ahead of us, okay, we don't just nudge them back towards us. Notice how these arrows kind of loop like this. That's because we come back and we go the other way and we walk away. So if the dog is pulling me or pulling you and they're ahead of you, but in a diagonal fashion, you still have to go the other way. So let me show you an example of a dog pulling me in a diagonal fashion. So here I'm walking down the street and the dog's walking with me, then he strays away from me to my side, but then he goes ahead of me. Notice how he's past my shoes and he's ahead of me, and he's in a diagonal fashion ahead of me. All right, we do not just pull the dog back towards us in those moments. We actually head back, go behind the dog's bum and just do a turn like we normally would, while adding a discouragement type pressure while the dog's at the end of the leash and at the end of the bubble, and then the leash goes back to being slack afterwards. Okay, so as the dog goes ahead of me in a diagonal fashion, I start to move my body properly, I keep my hand extended out, and I give us some discouragement tugs on the leash, and then the leash goes back to being slack, and then I continue on my walk. So if the dog is straight ahead of you, of course we head the other way. As soon as the dog cuts us off in front of our legs, we turn and we head the other way. So when the dog is below here, we simply nudge them back into the bubble, and when the dog is above here, meaning they're ahead of you, even if it's by a little bit diagonally, we go back the other way, okay? That's how we discourage a dog from going away from us. And very important, number 5, the game plan remains the same regardless of the color that you use. So regardless of the color that you want to use, which we'll talk about in just a moment, the game plan to teach your dogs to walk with us remains the exact same. Now let's have a look at these 6 popular colors that owners are using to train their dogs, and then I'm going to show you examples of each one of these colors being used the right way by adding a discouragement to the dog when they stray away from us. Number 1 is the harness, all right? Number 2 is the flat buckle collar. Number 3 is the gentle leader. Number 4 is the slip lead, martingale, or choker. All 3 are essentially the same. Number 5 is the Hermspringer prong collar or the Star Mark Pro Training collar. And number 6 is an e-collar, such as the Micro Educator from e-collar Technologies, which is the e-collar that I use with every single dog that I train. Now let's have a look at each one of these collars being used the right way when it comes time to teaching our dogs to walk. Let's have a look starting with the number 2, the flat buckle collar. So remember, I'm going to show you how all these collars need to be used the right way when applying pressure in order to get some kind of result when we're training our dogs to walk with us. Otherwise, if we just yank the dog back or pull the dog back hoping that that discourages them, it's not going to work, okay? It's all about timing, techniques, and movement, okay? How and when do we apply pressure with these collars, any collar, in order to get some kind of results, okay? So regardless of the collar that you use, they all have to be used the exact same way in order to get a result. And of course, some collars do a better job than others. So let's have a look at all these collars being used the right way in order to get some kind of result. So this dog is going to go ahead of me, and I'm going to extend my hand out forward, let them hit the end of the leash and the end of the bubble, and I'm going to extend my hand out forward. That's the first thing you do. Extend your hands out forward. Do not restrict the dog. Let the dog reach the end of the leash and the end of the bubble. That's where they feel a little bit of pressure like you're seeing there. A little pop and release of the pressure. Okay, make sure you pop and release. And here the dog's going to go to my side, try and stray away from me. I'm simply going to nudge him with a pop release back towards me. Pop, release, and keep walking straight. Next, we'll look at the gentle leader, and the same concept applies. When the dog reaches the end of the leash and hits the end of the bubble, there's a predictable and consistent discouragement waiting for the dog right there. Okay, so in this example, the trainer and his client are stopping every time the dog hits the bubble. Okay, they're stopping every time the dog hits the bubble, and you can do this, but I'm always going to recommend that you actually go the other way. Okay, so when your dog goes ahead of you, extend your hand out forward, apply discouragement, and walk away. I find you get a much better result that way. In my opinion, dogs learn quicker this way. Stop, discouragement, and walk away. Next, we'll look at the slip lead, and the exact same game plan is being used here. When the dog strays away from us, we let them hit the end of the leash and hit the end of the bubble, and that's where they feel discouragement, okay? When they're away from us at the end of the leash, right? And then we walk away, and we do this over and over again. Next, we'll have a look at the Hermspringer prong collar. When the dog starts to go ahead of us, we let them hit the end of the leash and hit the end of the bubble, and right there, that's where the discouragement takes place as we walk away. It's very important to let the dog hit the end of the bubble, and then we walk away with a slack leash. Okay, here's another example. The dog's going to go ahead of us. We let them hit the end of the bubble, and boom, that's where the discouragement takes place, and we're walking away afterwards. And make sure that the leash goes back to being slack. Here I am doing this with a dog and a prong collar. It's our first time going outside and doing this, and look how gentle these little discouragements are. I kind of just let the dog stray out in front of me and hit this invisible wall where he feels a little bit of prong collar pressure right there. And then over time, I'm going to start adding a bit of pressure like you see here. I'm going to tug the leash a little bit. Okay, I'm going to add some pressure when he reaches the end of the bubble, and then we get this result within just a few minutes. But we have to do things properly and add a discouragement the right way. Next, we'll have a look at the Micro Educator e-collar, which is what I use to train every single dog. Now you have to understand something. The leash is actually connected to a flat buckle collar, okay? The leash is connected to a flat buckle collar, and the e-collar is on the dog's neck by itself. And here's when I turn the e-collar on at a very, very low level that the dog can just perceive and just feel. It's when I tug the leash when the dog reaches the end of the bubble, which is right here. I'm going to tug the leash, and you see that little red light? That's that's the e-collar being turned on because the dog is away from me. So I turn the e-collar sensation pressure at the exact same time as I tug the leash when the dog's away from me. Pop, 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 and then I walk away, all right? Same with this dog here. Pop, 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 pop. You see that little red light? And then I walk away. And notice that that little red light only turns on when the dog's way ahead of me, hitting the end of the leash and the end of the bubble, and then feels a little bit of leash pressure and e-collar pressure. Here's an example of me outside with a German Shepherd who's learning how to walk. Notice how I only tug the leash when he reaches far away from me, which is the bubble. And every time I tug the leash, I'm touching the e-collar as well on really, really low levels and gradually going up. I'm going to have him understand that that bubble around me is getting a little hotter every other minute, okay? But I take my time, I do the repetitions, and I stay in motion, and I continuously discourage him from being away from me. Same here. I let the dog reach the end of the bubble, and then I tug the leash, I touch the e-collar, and I walk away. I have a slack leash until the dog hits the bubble. Look at that, slack leash, and then when the dog hits the end of the leash, I tug it, I touch the e-collar, I walk away, and I stay in motion. That's how we continuously discourage a dog from going away from us using an e-collar, starting nice and low on the levels and gradually going up. So as you can see, all these collars here need to be used the same way to get some kind of results when we're training our dogs. However, there's some big differences between these collars, and I want you to know what they are. So let's go through it right now. What's the difference between these collars? Number one is the physical sensation that the dog is going to feel when pressure is applied. So for example, with the harness, when physical pressure is applied, the dog is going to feel sensation around their armpits and on their chest, all right?
So I bought this, but she still pulls so much that now she has no hair underneath here and it's all red.
With a flat buckle collar, the dog is going to feel a sensation of pressure on their throat and on their necks.
So bad.
With a gentle leader, the physical sensation that the dog is going to feel is a squishing of the face with the head being tilted to the right or to the left.
That's not fun, yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why
With a slip lead, the sensation that the dog is going to feel is a squeezing sensation when they reach the end of the leash, because the slip lead is going to tighten and squeeze the neck, all right?
What's going to happen when the dog wants something is they're going to be choked. We get a lot of questions on the slip lead choking a dog. You don't want it in the middle on the trachea. The proper position to have the leash is up high, under the jaw, right behind the ears, at the top of the neck.
Number 5, the Hermspringer prong collar or the star mark collar. What your dog's going to feel then is a sensation of multiple contact points that have round edges, no different than your finger, and your dog's going to feel a poke and a release. A poke and a release. We know that this doesn't hurt, and we also know that you barely feel anything at all. And the same is true with the prong collar. These are rounded out, smooth edges, and I pull down on it. Even if I pull quite hard, not only do I barely feel anything. And number 6, the micro educator e-collar, the physical sensation that the dog is going to feel is whatever I want it to be. And whenever I train dogs with this, I start at the lowest perceived sensation level that they can just perceive, which is like 5, 6, or 7. And when I touch it, all it feels like is this. It just feels like a little touch, like somebody touching me on the shoulder. That's all it is. And as I gradually go up, it feels like somebody maybe pulling a hair, or maybe like getting like a bad mosquito bite or something like that. And I start nice and slow, and I gradually go up. Whiskey, let's go. Pop, 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 pop. Yep. So that's the first difference between all these collars. It's the physical sensation that the dog is going to feel when pressure is applied when they reach the end of the leash or the end of the bubble. And I just want to point out that in this course, you can use whatever collar you want during training. It's completely up to you. It's your dog. You can train him or her with whatever collar you like. And I also want to mention that some dogs, when you put a collar around them and you add a little bit of pressure, they object like crazy, okay? This is very, very rare, but in case you have a dog like this, keep in mind that in my bonus section of the course, I show you a dog that objects to leash pressure like I've never seen in my entire life. This dog refuses to walk no matter what, and you're going to see exactly what we did to help him overcome his objection to leash pressure so that he can learn how to walk properly. Okay, so in case you have a dog like this, go to my bonus section. I'll show you exactly how to help your dog. And the second difference between these collars is the amount of time, the amount of repetitions, and the amount of pressure needed in order to get a result. Remember, all these collars here give off a different physical sensation that the dog will feel when he or she strays away from you and hits the end of the leash or hits the end of the bubble. So with every collar, you're going to get a different result, all right? And lastly, the third difference between these collars is the overall experience for us and the dogs. That's why I always use number 6, the micro educator. This allows me to have the best overall experience for both myself and the dog. And here's why. It takes the least amount of time, the least amount of repetitions and the least amount of pressure in order to get the right results. Okay, dogs learn very quickly with this when we do it properly and we introduce pressure at the right time, the right way to discourage them from straying away from us, all right? So very important, that's the difference between all these collars. And I recommend that you start with a flat buckle collar. So when it's time to start training your dog to walk with you, I suggest you start with number 2, a regular flat buckle collar, and stay open-minded to using the micro educator or the Hermspringer prong collar, okay? Very important. Stay open-minded to using this because you're gonna see me using it and you're gonna see how incredible the results are, okay? And the next video in the course is gonna be an instructional and tutorial video on number 5 and number 6. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one in the course.